treating on the battlefield, just as we would on a football field or a soccer field or following a motor vehicle accident back here in Garrison, or physical wounds. These incredibly resilient soldiers, probably best represented by the most easily identified loss of limb, eyesight, or hearing. We now have more than 1,200 amputees, many of whom are double amputees. But in contrast to only a decade ago, we've retained almost 200 of our amputees on active duty in uniform. We've redeployed 40 of them to battle. This is Dave Rosell, a former aide of mine and a career cav officer, lost his leg in OEF 1, and he's now in his second deployment as an amputee to return, God willing, in 5 weeks to his family at Fort Stewart, Georgia. So how do we do this? We do this with a partnership. We do this through an enterprise approach that involves all of the people here at the front and many more. If I can go to the first slide beyond this, please. Just a quick description of Army medicine and to emphasize what you heard Jim Boozer up here say when he introduced all of us at the front table. And that was that we're all, as Rick Lynch said to me, leaned over and whispered, we're all holding down two hats. In fact, I'm going to move real quickly from my role as the Army's Surgeon General and the staff officer to look more like what General Lynch has and become the commander of the medical command. And it didn't occur to me until the Secretary was talking, but she kind of reinforced the notion this is really part of the Army's first energy and recycling program. This is a net zero program to recycle staff between the Army staff and the medical command, right? Am I right? Army medicine consists of a core of us that are involved in policy oversight and standardization and this interagency and inter-service coordination, because 95% of the budget for Army medicine comes out of the defense health programs. It's not even an Army budget only. It's kept at the DoD level. We're a $12 billion corporation, most of which comes out of the DoD level. And then a group of about 75,000 great soldier medics and civilians, contract and GS. We're about 60% civilians, just as the Installation Management Command and Army Corps of Engineers is very heavily civilian-oriented, and we could not do what we do without them. But involved in 400+ units across the globe in our fixed facilities, providing care in hospitals and clinics. We do more than half of all of the care in the Department of Defense, both inpatient and outpatient care on a daily basis. Medical logistics and research, we're part of the life cycle command for biomedical products, material or intellectual. The care of warriors and the transition of those warriors back into uniform or into continued care. The delivery of dental services and with the veterinarians' public health services, our veterinary officers, in addition to taking care of four-footed combatants called military working dogs, still the most sensitive instrument for detecting ordnance is the nose of a dog. But more importantly, our public health officers witness the fact that swine flu is named swine flu because it begins in an animal population of domesticated birds and swine before it moves into humans. And so our veterinary officers are very important for public health maintenance. And then finally our schoolhouse. Together, this organization is about, as I said, 75,000 strong and represents about half of all the Army medics out there, because the other half are out in deployable units at brigade level, at echelon above brigade or echelon above division in the form of deployable hospitals, sanitary units, and PAs, physicians, nurses that are out there in the field. Next slide. We are committed to a covenant with the Army community to deliver, to optimize health and deliver health care in accordance with this covenant. And it all rests on this partnership, we are committed to delivering the highest quality services to maintain health and to promote health and well-being, to provide the best care that we can should one fall off this balance beam of health. And we do that by optimal access, and almost more important than instantaneous access is continuity of care. I'm among the patients of my own organization, like the Hair Club for Men. I'm not only the president, but I'm a user. And I will substitute any day immediate access to care for someone who knows what my problems are and is going to follow through on those problems and work with me. And we do that through a series of processes that are outlined below to ensure that we're doing all of what I said in that opening slide. And to emphasize in the next slide this partnership in the transformation, I want to introduce, next slide please, the notion of how we're overlaying a series of critical programs on the Army's force generation model. This three-phase, iterative, cyclic process of task force organizing for the defense needs of the nation. Soldiers to be trained and ready to deploy, to be available for deployment, and increasingly that's going to be available even for contingency operations, and then to restore and reset when back. And it starts with our role as an Army enterprise. I was really happy to hear and even see the pictures that General Van Antwerp had for hospitals. We're getting new hospitals at Fort Bliss, at Fort Hood, at Fort Riley, at Fort Benning. We're getting a new hospital in design now at Landstuhl Regional Medical Center in Germany. And that doesn't count the two new joint hospitals, one at Fort Belvoir, the picture of which you saw up here in the Secretary's presentation on water reclamation and energy conservation, and the new Walter Reed National Military Medical Center, which will open when the National Military Medical Center Bethesda and the Walter Reed Army Medical Center in D.C. both close and reopen as a merged joint facility on the Bethesda campus. A remarkable transition that is occurring in the building of more hospitals for the Army and Army community in the next 3 to 5 years than have been built in the last 25 years. And representative of the Congress's generosity and the leadership in Congress. We move next to this program up here we call the Comprehensive Behavioral Health System of Care. A blinding flash of the obvious after deploying, supporting soldiers in deployment and their families back home, and then redeploying soldiers over the last 9 years of war. What we realize is the importance of tying the different phases. Inside this three-phase cycle is a human being and a family whose personal behavioral health challenges are not necessarily aligned with the industrial processes that go to developing or to manning, training, and equipping a brigade, deploying them, and then redeploying them. When a spouse might encounter stress and maybe even threaten to walk out on this marriage, or when a child encounters a serious illness or an elderly parent has major problems, is really independent of our Army force generation model. And so developing this very, very specific and tailored human dimensional behavioral health plan requires that we connect the dots. If you've got problems as a soldier before you leave with family stability and with alcohol, it's likely you're going to experience that while you're in deployment. And if you're further exposed to an IED blast that causes a concussive injury and may predispose you to post-traumatic stress, it's important that we know all of both those things when you get back and are ready to reset, and we can engage with you face-to-face or by some distributed process through a VTC with a counselor that enables you to get the care that's required, and in partnership with the Installation Management Command to get into an alcohol treatment program, for example, if necessary, or to work with our chaplains on the installation to get you some family counseling and to stabilize the problems that the family has through strong bonds programs and the like. All part of this comprehensive behavioral health system of care. We move then to a warrior transition plan. This warrior transition plan, now involving 29 different, anywhere from brigade to battalion to company-size warrior transition units that have 9,300 soldiers across the U.S., is extraordinarily well supported by, again, the installation. We have chaplains that are assisting us in that. Our barracks and our quarters for those the WTU soldiers are provided by Installation Management Command. In fact, they are in the best billets that we can find on every camps, post, and station where those WTUs are found. We've just completed now the 3rd year of inspections of those barracks and quarters, and find that they are overwhelmingly achieving the highest standards, to include compliance with the Americans with Disability Act, where it's required for wheelchairs and the like. Partnerships in developing what we call a medical management center to allow soldiers who have long-standing profiles or who are going through medical evaluation boards but are not within warrior transition units to get better access to care and services within the military treatment facility, and to get the necessary coordination for a medical board should that be required, even while they remain in the rear detachment. And we think that right now, just in the active component, there may be as many soldiers in this medically non-ready role as there are soldiers within the warrior transition unit. So there's roughly double the number of soldiers, and we are committed to the Army to work with MCON and others to develop rapid access and rapid resolution of the problems that those soldiers has. I want to talk real quickly about the pain management campaign plan. It's become abundantly clear that the management of pain, which is the most common reason that a patient in the country, civilian or military, seeks care from the medical system, is pain. And pain is variably managed, and in some cases inadequately managed across the civilian and the military sector. And so about a year and a half ago, I stood up a task force to look at how we're managing pain, and came to the conclusion we need a far better standardized program of pain management that doesn't just include the use of narcotics and pain medicines, but also widens the aperture in a highly standardized way. Open the aperture of different practices, such as what we now call complementary and alternative medical practices, the use of acupuncture and yoga and meditation and biofeedback and movement therapy, coupled with conventional catheter-based anesthesia or medications. We're doing this now in collaboration with the Air Force and the Navy and with the Veterans Administration across the Army to try to get our arms around pain management. Lots of enthusiasm for that. And last on this sheet, before we move to this last partnership program, is standing up what's known as the patient-centered medical home. This is a program that is seizing the country by storm, and this is a primary care-based approach to the care of the soldier, the family, that enrolls these folks in a primary care clinic and a team that consists of a family practitioner or a general internist or a pediatrician, assisted by a nurse case manager, by technicians and medics that can assist in a group way, in a team way, to provide comprehensive care at the primary care level, continuity, and even begins to open up avenues such as secure emailing and the like, so that we don't have to always bring you back to the clinic and maintain your health and well-being. Very, very enthusiastically being endorsed. We think in the military health system, we're going to be able to bring in over 50% of our patients into patient-centered medical home sites, both inside our current hospitals and clinics, but even some clinics that I'm leasing outside the gate, 17 different clinics at 11 different communities that will allow us to extend this reach even to where our patients are living. The last thing I want to talk about quickly is how we're combining the Public Health Command and even the work that's being done in Comprehensive Soldier Fitness, which is not a medical program. Comprehensive Soldier Fitness is a commander's program. It's an Army program to maintain resilience and fitness. In fact, it's to keep you away from this sickness model that we have and the need to seek care within our clinics and hospitals. And on the last slide, I want to talk about how the three communities that we're working, the community of the Installation Management Command, the Medical Command, and those that are running the Comprehensive Soldier Fitness are overlapping in caring for our soldiers, our families, and civilians around this notion of resilience. Go to the next, hit the next one, please, and build it. Here's comprehensive soldier fitness. You've heard about this. The chief talked about it at lunch and in almost every forum. Attending to these dimensions of the individual. Next, hit the next one. Our Army Wellness Center is probably best represented by what General Lynch had down at Fort Hood, Texas, what we stood up at Fort Carson a number of years ago, and what we have now throughout Europe, about 6 sites, attending to some of the same dimensions, but especially the physical and mental. Next slide, please. And the notion of IMCON supported resiliency campuses attending to the same dimensions. All of these overlapping and synchronous and complementary. And this isn't redundant as much as it is building on one another's strengths in a partnership way. And where we can't necessarily build these physically, we're going to be looking to build them, if you will, virtually, maybe through web-enabled tools to include a SimCity-like place where the reserve component may be able to tap in and access these services, but at distance. So I hope, next slide please, I hope I have sufficiently stressed the value of this partnership, the value of the importance of an enterprise approach to the problems, and I think especially in the work that we're doing within the Services and Infrastructure Core Enterprise, that we are seeing the maturation and the realization of this ambition to tap into all of the strengths of this partnership in an effective way. For those who may want to hear more about this, I have some time on the Family Forum tomorrow. I'll be talking at greater length about this and many other programs, to include this program right now within Army Medicine to build and maintain the trust of the Army family and the nation. All a fundamental part of this partnership we've talked about. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, sir. And then our last panel member, my boss, General Lynch.
Hey, folks, I'm tickled to death to be up here on this platform with this prestigious panel. For the last 5 months, I've been able to work almost on a daily basis with Secretary Hammack. And as she said in her comments, she doesn't know a lot about the Army, but I do. But she knows everything there is to know, at least I think she does, when it comes to the energy and the environment. And she's teaching me on a daily basis. I mean, I'm the guy that when they said sustainment, I was thinking, how do I get my repair parts to the tanks? That's what I was thinking. And when people say things like lead, you know, I'm thinking, that sounds good, but I'm not sure what it means. Secretary Hammack's been teaching me that over the course of the last 5 months, and I cherish our partnership. To share the podium with two of my favorite human beings, Van Antwerp and Eric Schoonmaker, is a big deal to me. I mean, they are model patriots. They have a passion for our profession. And I like hanging out with them because they make me feel young, you know. And that's hard for me to do these days. And Eric, I didn't know you were the president of the Hair Club for Men, but I sure could use some help. That'd be useful to me. I love to see the audience out here. I love to see friends like Randy Castro and Dave Alcourt. Gentlemen, again, thanks for being here and thanks for your service. If you work for me in one of my 3 hats, either as the CG-MCOM, as the AXIM for the Army, or the co-chair of this SICE board, please raise your hand. What the hell are you people doing here? You've already heard the story. Maybe you're here to say, well, what's he going to say now? Maybe he can tell us what we're supposed to be doing. Lots that I want to talk about, but it's really more important to get to the questions and answers than it is to hear me talk. I think you got to ask yourself the question, what are you trying to accomplish when you talk about transforming installations? I give you 3 thoughts. And I do know that regardless of your lot in life, whether you're a uniformed soldier or a Department of the Army civilian or a government contractor, the question is, how can I help? I know that's what's on your mind. So think about these 3 things. What we're supposed to do on our installations is provide our soldiers and their families a quality of life that's commensurate with their quality of service. That's what we're supposed to do. I think you have to extend that. No, candidly, I demand that we extend that to the rest of the Army family, which includes the Department of the Army civilians, because they also deserve a quality of life that's commensurate with their quality of service. So think about that. How do we transform our installations to do that even better? Candidly, it can never be good enough. I know I frustrate the folks who work for me, but I'm never satisfied, because it's never good enough for our soldiers, their families, or our great civilians on installations. So how do we take this to the next level? And oh, by the way, in an era of increasingly reduced resources. You know, the chief talks all the time about the point. We had a budget of $80 billion a year as an Army prior to 9/11. The budget this year is $250 billion, but it's going to go down. All indications are going to go down. So how do we ensure that the quality of life on our installations don't go down when we have reduced resources? Think about that. The second thing I want you to think about, because you got to help us through this, is what happens when everybody comes home? You know, when the chief announces increased bog dwell, the amount of time you spend home compared to the amount of time you spend deployed, everybody says, great, the soldiers are going to be home with their families more, and I say, great. But the point is, the soldiers are going to be home with their families more. So where are they going to live? Where are they going to work? Where are they going to work out? What schools are they going to go to? How are we going to accommodate this? I've had the privilege over the last 5 years to be a senior commander on 2 different installations, Fort Stewart in the 3rd Division, Fort Hood in the 3rd Corps. And candidly, when people were deployed, we took advantage of the vacant buildings and used that as swing space. When everybody comes home, what do? We all have to think about that together. I'm going to show you a series of slides just to prompt the question and answer period later. Next slide, please. Just like Van and just like Eric, we all have multiple jobs. You know, I was sitting there at 3 Corps in Fort Hood, and General Casey came in at the 3-month point and said, in about a year, you're going to go be the CG of MCOM. And for me, that was a blessing because I knew that was the job that could truly touch the lives of our soldiers and their families. He didn't tell me that in addition to being a CG MCOM, you're going to be the AXIM for the Army and run this Service and Infrastructure Corps enterprise. But none of us complained. It's all about service. And candidly, the collection of all of us focused on the effort is taking us to the next level. On the yellow, reflects the sides of what I do inside the Pentagon as the AXIM for the Army. And I got all my great leaders here, Dr. Craig College, my deputy, that do the work of the Lord inside the building on a daily basis. And I'd never served in the Pentagon for the first 33 years of my military career. But I've been there the last year, and boy, that place is strange. And you got to have people on your team who understand the ways of the building, and that's what happens within my AXIM hat. I've got magnificent leaders that work with me in MCOM. In case you didn't know, about a week ago, we uncased the colors for the Installation Management Command at Fort Sam Houston, Texas. Actually, what we did is we uncased our colors at a Kmart in San Antonio, Texas. That's actually pretty cool if you think about it. To get out there sooner rather than later, we rented the Kmart. We now call it the iMart. Some people call it the Flop House, the Ford leased operating place. But it's the headquarters of MCOM. And in July of next year, we'll move into our new headquarters building on Fort Sam Houston. I've got magnificent region directors, all of which are in a room that work for me as the MCOM commander. And again, my partnership with Secretary Hammack is just so very important. You get a sense of the magnitude of the issue there at the bottom bubble. It's a $28 billion budget if you think about it, including the stimulus. It's about 120,000 great Americans doing the work of the Lord on a daily basis, and there's a large number of installations. The Army has about 163 of them. Prior to this job, I thought it was Fort Stewart and Fort Hood, but I realize now the Army's bigger than that, and all those folks deserve to have that quality of life that I'm talking about. Next slide. You got to have a strategy, a vision, and a way ahead. If I could get Colonel Dillard in the back room to hold up one of the campaign plans. And I'd ask you to grab one of those